Hi, this is Regina Y. Favors with Favors Financial Recovery. So the series topic today is life preparation matters and overcoming financial setback. And so much of our time spent on this earth is about jumping into certain things before our time, or making hasty decisions based upon faulty logic or faulty understanding, or not doing anything out of sheer fright or fear. But much can be accomplished if we prepare, if we understand that we do have this life and this life requires planning. And sometimes I think because we have had parents who did most of the responsibility decision making up to and including our 18 years of age, we don't always have a lot of opportunity to plan things out. I think when parents give us chores, that gives us some kind of responsibility, but I also think parents need to sit down with us and have the kind of conversation: when are you going to do these chores? Keep a journal of you performing and completing these chores. Even if it's just a mere checklist, it sort of keeps us on the road of sitting down with pen and pad and working things out in our head, versus when they tell us something to do, we get upset, we get offended, and we do it when we think we should do it, and then they challenge our assumptions and we get into trouble, and then we end up having to be put on punishment because of what they believe as, disobedience. It's just a number of things in terms of our relationships with our parents, but it's also in terms of our relationships with decision making. And I think if parents would just give us some sort of autonomy, grant us some autonomy in guiding us through this concept of life, this thing called life. Like, for instance, in how we manage money, how we manage allowance, right? If you ever received allowance, talking to us about, okay, I gave you $5. Make sure by the end of the week you have $3. Don't spend all of it by the end of the week, because suppose I don't give you another $5, right? And it could be more than that, but it's something to think about going forward with anyone who has a child who wants to bring him or her up in the understanding of responsibility and responsibility with financial management. So this is series topic: life preparation matters and overcoming financial setback. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you are interested in further videos, hit the notification bell. Favors financial recovery, life preparation matters, and overcoming financial setback. So this lecture is subject to fair use. And here are your learning objectives. So by the end of this lecture, students will be able to do the following: reflect on previous romantic relationships, reflect on issues with your personal worth and life vision, define the current boundaries around your finances, apply the concept of life preparation to your current financial setback, design a plan that incorporates life preparation matters into your financial recovery. So I always bring in romantic relationships because as long as you can date, you're going to have issues with money when it comes to romance, because especially if you are new to romance, you are a high school student, or if you are in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s, and sometimes even in your 50s, you struggle to know how to manage your finances when it comes to romantic relationships. Life preparation needs to include a discussion about romance and finance. Many people have noted, and research has noted, that one of the factors of divorce is bad financial management. Somebody not making enough money, or somebody who is making enough money spending too much, or someone who is not making enough money spending too much, or someone who is making enough money and not spending anything at all. It's a big turnoff. Either way, you know, you don't want someone who spends too much money, and you don't want someone who won't spend anything at all. So life preparation definitely has much to do with romantic relationships. Know your personal worth and life vision is very important. We don't, unless we are sort of included in sort of these kind of self-improvement courses, little programs, little neighborhood programs, community programs, college-based programs. We don't really understand our personal worth until it's been damaged, until someone has come along and thrown water on our mirror, and we get a distorted vision, and then we have to scramble and pull and come back and try to find out who we are as a person. And sometimes that doesn't happen until later in life, when you begin to feel your mortality. There was a point in my life where I was on the road to becoming self-aware, and then I got distracted with relationships, friendships, and family, and then that led to just being misused, abused, not treated well, me taking advantage of myself. You know, if you stay too long in a relationship, you are now taking advantage of your own self. And so my process towards personal worth began maybe possibly in my 40s, when I began to feel my mortality and realized that I was scrambling to get back what I lost. And so I wonder sometimes, had I adopted a life vision, first of all, I had to understand that, but had I adopted a life vision much earlier in life, I would have been less likely to get into distractions or encourage distractions. So that's something also I want you to think about, and we will discuss. Define the current boundaries around your finances. So if you were looking at it from the romantic relationship standpoint, you don't want to overspend whatever your budget is, right? That's why sometimes people want to be wined and dined, but that takes a lot of money, especially if you are just getting to know each other. You don't want anyone to take you for granted, but why are you letting someone just spend $500 on a date with you, and you haven't even mapped out the fact that you are going to be in a relationship? And it's just a date. And so you need to set boundaries around your finances if you're going to date, if you're going to enter into a relationship. It doesn't, at 46, it doesn't make any sense to invest a lot of money if we're not married. It just doesn't make any sense. I'm not quite sure if I want to impress you like that. And I'm not quite sure if it's a good idea for you to try to impress me, because you might get the wrong idea that if you pay so much amount of money, it entitles you to something. No, we're dating, and we need to keep it on that level. And if we're going to move towards relationship making, relationship building, then we will reassess our finances after that, leading to marriage, not to this perpetual dating, live-in, shacking situation. So these are current boundaries around your finances are very important, because people make long-term decisions on a temporary circumstance. They're making wife-based, husband-based types of decisions, and you're not even boyfriend, girlfriend yet. So define the current boundaries around your finances. Apply the concept of life preparation to your current financial setback. So, of course, you are in a financial setback. So then how important is life preparation? Because if you didn't do a good job of adopting a life preparation plan prior to setback, which likely contributed to your setback, then you definitely need to adopt a life preparation plan through your setback and out of your setback, so you can overcome and stay out of setback. So life preparation as a concept is something that you want to think about. And then design a plan that incorporates life preparation matters into your financial recovery. That financial recovery is the last sort of core value, but you also want to adopt a plan that keeps you, that sort of gets you through recovery and to stability, overcoming, financial freedom, thrive. And those are some concepts I am further developing as well. So these are your learning objectives. The mission of Favors Financial Recovery is to offer psychology concepts and approaches to educate and encourage individuals to overcome financial setback. And so this is something that I want to think about, and I want you to think about. You have access to multiple online resources for particular personal finance concepts, definitely credit concepts, all different types of concepts. But I want you to think about psychology and applying psychology to your understanding about how you make the types of decisions you make, and educate and encourage you to overcome financial setback using psychology. So this is our mission statement. Core values. So personal responsibility, growth mindset, mastery orientation, ethical dealings, integrity, and recovery. So personal responsibility is essentially we are 100% responsible for ourselves and the decisions we make. Sometimes we don't always get what we need when we are young. We may have to assume responsibility for a chore, as I noted, but it's almost like we have to be told to do that chore each time. I think sometimes parents want to be able to have that power in the parent-child relationship. You know, it might be, there are some households where the chore list is taped to the refrigerator door, right? And it's clear you are supposed to do the dishes on Tuesday, or take out the trash on Wednesday or something like that. But I think on some level, we need to get a lot better in terms of doling out responsibility as you know, to kids. Maybe we sit down at the table with pen and pad and the checklist. And so we make it a much more conscientious thing. So by the time that child grows up and gets to 18, 19, 20 years old, and he or she wants to go to college, or he or she just wants to find a good job and have an apartment, they've learned the process of sitting down with pen and pad, looking at their checklist, going through their checklist, and being conscientious about personal responsibility. So that's a core value for Favors Financial Recovery. Growth mindset refers to Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. And she looks at the contrast to fixed mindset. Fixed mindset is essentially you believe abilities, you tend to think, you don't embrace challenges. You sort of believe that whatever you know, and then growth mindset is you are willing to accept constructive criticism. You embrace challenges. You know that failure is not the end goal. You understand that if you fail at something, you just have to take some time to reassess and then go back and do that thing again and pass it, right? So that's the difference between fixed mindset and growth mindset. Mastery orientation refers actually to goal orientation. So there's a difference between learning goal orientation and performance goal orientation. Learning goal orientation is about mastery. You believe that abilities can be developed over time, and your goal is much more intrinsically motivated, that you are learning for learning's sake, which suggests that there is a connection between learning goal orientation and growth mindset. In contrast, performance goal orientation, you believe abilities are fixed, that they do not develop over time, and you sort of want to look smart in every situation, which is extrinsically motivated and connected to fixed mindset. So with our core values, it's important for us to take the time to understand and learn and be encouraged by education, financial education, to pursue mastery in it, because we have to live with ourselves financially for the rest of our lives. Finances do not take a back seat to everything else. When we do that, it affects how we live. And so if we make finances at the forefront of our understanding about life preparation, I don't think we would find ourselves homeless. I don't think we would find ourselves overindulged, entitled. I don't think we will find ourselves just completely unable to manage ourselves financially if we pursue a mastery orientation. Ethical dealings has a lot to do with, I feel, credit card dealings, especially when you are down in life economically and financially. So for instance, we would go good with paying a credit card, right? But then if we lose our jobs, or in the case of what's going on right now with the pandemic, we'll say, well, I got to do all I can to make sure I pay my rent. So if I can't pay this credit card this month, I just can't do it. But we still owe the credit card. And I think if we took some time to really assess whether or not we could really pay that credit card in full at the end of the month, I don't think we would get that many cards, because we say to ourselves, well, I get how many cards I want, and I can always pay the minimum due. And financial consultants always tell us, don't pay just the minimum, the minimum due, pay much more than that. And that is something that we need to get better at. So if we're going to engage in the credit card market, then we need to save for that. Not only do we need an emergency savings, we need to make sure that we can meet shelter costs, etc. But if we're going to engage in loan making, credit card building the credit report score, things like that, the credit score, then we need to make sure that we have the money to pay that even in down times. And so ethical dealings has a lot to do with how we engage the organizations that we owe, and our belief systems and our attitudes, even when we're down. We shouldn't catch an attitude just because we're down. We're down. But we should also look at the fact that we should have planned for down time. So ethical dealings. Integrity, of course, always suggests character, what kind of character you have. The credit score tells a lot about what kind of character you have. Whether or not you are an exceptional payer, or whether or not you pay on time, whether or not you honor your commitments. And integrity is not just related to credit card and only finances, but how you carry out your work on the job. You are being paid to work on the job. And sometimes I notice people don't do as much as they need to do. And all of us have been challenged by work at the job. Sometimes we've been offended that we had to do certain tasks. Sometimes we just really didn't want to be there. And there are times that we just kind of resent the idea that we have to work, right? Because we're not millionaires, we're not billionaires, but they even worked, right, to get to where they are. So integrity says a lot about you in terms of your character, how you engage the world outside of your home, what kinds of plans you make while you are in home in terms of financially, and how you apply those plans outside of the home. Don't get much more than you can bear mentally, psychologically, socially. I was paying all of my bills prior to the pandemic, but when the pandemic hit and jobs shut down and I lost classes, I had to make a decision. But it really bothered me. It wore on my mental faculties, on my psychology, that I couldn't pay my credit cards. It just bothered me. I had nights where I cried. It just really bothered me. And maybe because I'm much older, that I care about how I present myself, whether it's on the credit report, on the through the credit score, through my relationships with creditors, my home, all that. It bothers me that I wasn't able to do that. And I'm still struggling now uh, to make those credit card payments. But I have taken note of that. And going forward, I'm going to make sure I close out the majority of those cards, paying them off, and then only take a good few of them for just a number of reasons to rebuild credit, because I can't live my life like that, heartbroken that I can't pay my bills. And it's no fault of our own in terms of losing jobs due to the pandemic, but we've had down times before in life. I was down during the recent financial recession and ended up losing my job there as well, and had to become homeless and lived in with family, and then lived with lived in shelters, motels, things like that. And so maybe that should have given me some kind of insight to plan for the down times, because they always come around. But we never think to do that because we're still in survivor mode. So I think we need to have a vision for not only overcoming, but planning for those down times, even when we are doing well, right? Because you may not be down sometimes financially, but the system might be down. The social system, the political system, the financial system, the economic system. And then, of course, the last core value is recovery. And so with recovery, you want to reach recovery. It's like the person who's running on a track. You don't want to just endure setback and never cross the finish line. You do want to recover. Recovery, to me, in this instance, refers to whatever you lost prior to, whatever you lost as a result of your setback, you get it back, right? So I lost my job in 2008, and I was able to get back with the district in 2013. Right, I got it back. Now, there are some steps you would have to take after recovery, right? You want to stay on that job, build up a reputation, do your job, build up a retirement fund, pension, or whatever. There are some steps after that, but you definitely want to get to recovery, right? And so that you can begin to plan from recovery. So these are your core values. Or our core values. This is life preparation, worth, vision, and finances. So I want to talk about your romantic worth. As I noted earlier in a previous slide, that sometimes we don't know our worth until it's been damaged, right? Until someone has thrown water on our mirror. And as long as no one tells us that we are ugly, we think we are beautiful. We think we are pretty. We think we are all that. But it doesn't, but that is challenged. That sort of implicit argument about yourself is challenged once you enter the dating market, especially when your beauty is challenged, and it is challenged and compared to the global beauty standards. And I talk about romantic worth and other series that I have on YouTube, but I want to connect it to personal finances here, and overcoming financial setback and moving towards financial recovery. So if your male partner, and we're looking at an example based upon global beauty standards, if your male partner or female partner, for some men listening, wants a high value partner who is socially perceived as a 9/10, stay off that territory. Because if your partner wants someone like that, that means that you are not like that. And what happens with people, and you see this today, especially on social media, people will begin to change their look. They will get more plastic surgery, they will get butt surgery, they will get liposuction. They will do all they can to become a 9/10. But in your heart, you may not be the type of person who fits that standard. You can be a beautiful person. You can be a 9-10, but that person wants another 9-10. And I've always heard someone say, a man is as faithful as his options, that they always want to level up. And if you go and change the very essence of yourself using your personal finances, there's something that's going to be left a gap. And again, it's usually your personal finances. If you allocate all of your efforts to trying to become the thing that other person wants you to become, then you are not going to have something else in the end. Their perception means for you that you are not a 9-10 in their eyes. And you can change and change and change and do everything that you can to make yourself look like what it is you want to look like for that person to increase your romantic worth. But if they're not accepting you as you are, now I'm not saying you need to be a slob. I'm not saying you need to not carry yourself well and still think you should be accepted. I'm not talking about that. A lot of women carry themselves very well, but men oftentimes, for ego reasons, will go and pick a woman that they ordinarily would not want or date, just to have sex, just to boost his ego, just to do anything to make him feel good in the meantime, while he is pursuing the person that he really wants. And when that person rejects him, he goes back to like the rebound person, gets whatever he needs, nourishment, encouragement, food, shelter, anything. And here it is, while he's doing that and you thinking that he wants to be with you, you are doling out cash to make yourself better, but also doling out cash to take care of him, because that type of person never has a place of his or her own. And so their perception, you base your whole life on their perception, and they don't even really care about you. You base all of your personal finances. I have seen those shows, Love and Hip Hop. No, not Love and Hip Hop. Love After Lockup. And there was this woman and men too on that show. They're paying out $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. One of those people who was in jail, who was a woman, I forget her name, it was a black lady, and it was a white man who was sort of sending her all that money, like $800,000. That's a house. That's a scholarship. That's a house. That's a help somebody who's homeless. That's a lot of money to commit to a person who doesn't even end up being with you in the end. So their perception of you can't change their perception with your money. You can't change your romantic worth to fit their perception with your money. You can indeed change your romantic worth for yourself, but you can't change it for that person. This does not mean that you are not beautiful in your own right or a 9-10 in your perception. What this means is that our society connects physical attractiveness with some form of upward mobility. So that's why you see people, men, when they do, when they're not doing so well, they sort of stay with the, I forget what it's called, the come up woman. But then when they do well and they make more money and they increase in their status, their economic status or social status, they drop the come up woman and they get the woman that they really want. It's like a car. Men rate women by cars as well. They use a rating system 1 to 10, but they also look at us in terms of investment as cars. So a person will stay with a Toyota, a Ford, a Buick, because it's reliable, it'll last a long time, it'll give you what you need, and you can have it for years. But then when they get more money, they want that Tesla, they want that Porsche, they want that Lamborghini, because it makes them look good. And men are much more ego driven than women. Women do, of course, like to compete with each other, and they want to have the best fashionable bag and have the best fashionable clothes, and there goes your money even more. Whether you are making $100,000 a year or $1 million a year, you still need to know how to manage your money, your intake versus your outtake. It is almost satiric. All the pretty people are with each other and are thriving, and all the non-pretty people must stay down and on their own level. So when a person who becomes famous decides to drop the come up woman, he immediately lowers her social status for anybody else. Unless she was already high social status, and he married her. And so then if she was already high social status and he didn't have any real status until he married her, then her status won't really change just because he decided to divorce her and move with somebody else. But when she didn't have status and he has status, he's going to marry the person, or he's going to move to another person and marry someone else to increase her status, because men like to look like they're leaders. They like to look like they're bosses. And so and of course they like a pretty person on their arm. They like a person who glitters and shines on their arm. But it's unfortunate, because the person who was with you as a come up was the person who would, I believe, who would take care of you if you got sick. And that's something to think about too. So when you are thinking about your finances and attaching them to your romantic worth and vice versa, you want to consider all these factors as well. Know your life vision. So when you know the vision you have for your life, you are unlikely to allow someone to disrupt and distract. And these are the types of people, the disruptors and the distractors when it comes to finances are always the types of people who need money. And it can be a little bit here and there, or it can be big. I'm always suspicious of the person who needs $25 every week. They got a full-time job, they got other little hustles and things like that, but somehow they need $25 from you for gas money every week. It doesn't have anything to do with the $25. It has everything to do with controlling your finances. I once had a family member, when I got my school money, she always managed to want to have part of my school money. And then it was my fault. I told her what I got every semester. And so then I would offer it too, because a lot of times people like that like to say, well, I didn't ask you to give me any money. I didn't ask you to give me any money. But in some ways they are asking. They'll put forth this little statement and then listen to you breathe, right, to see if you're going to respond. It's like the negotiator tactic. Never be the first one to respond. And so they disrupt. It's not just so much that they are disrupting your money flow or anything like that. They are disrupting your learning process to the point that you never progress. And so be careful about those people. That's why you need to have a life vision for yourself and then begin studying your finances. And what you already earned. You earn $50,000 a year. Okay, just because you earn $50,000 a year doesn't mean that that other person earns $50,000 a year, unless you're taking care of a parent or something. I don't know. But people like to use your money to fund their lifestyle. And so that is a disruption not only to your money flow, because money is unintentionally going out. It's not serving a purpose. It's just that the person wants to have your money. It's not like they had a flood in their home and the flood insurance won't pay because of the location of the home. And you may say, well, I got a couple of thousand that I can give you, and then you can live here. It's not like it's like that. Now, people want to just interrupt your finances. If you do not know the vision you have for your life, then this is something you should accomplish before considering a long-term partner, because it's nothing worse than having vision and then marrying a person who has no vision. Even if you're not trying to change the world in terms of vision decision making, you should know your life vision, what it is you want to do. There are some people who are now having to return to work in their 70s. And some people, I listened to Dave Ramsey. I watched some of his YouTube videos, and it just broke my heart. I'm trying to keep from crying right now. But it was a 72-year-old who said she has no retirement. She has no retirement. And I don't know what was her situation. She didn't really go into a long, detailed, situation. That she was talking about property that they had, like a house or something, and and her husband had this fancy car. And Dave Ramsey said, well, if you want to pay off the house, you may need to get rid of the car because you're 72. But that just breaks my heart. I don't want to be there. I'm 46 now, and I don't want to be at a place where I have to work until I'm 80 years old. Now, there's nothing wrong with working. If you wanted to keep a part-time job or something like that, just for exercise, that's a little different. But not when you have to, at 70-something years old, stand on your feet for 8 hours a day, for 40 hours a week, just to make it, right? Your vision is your purpose for living and navigating this life. Therefore, you must ask yourself if a long-term or short-term mating strategy will hinder you from accomplishing that purpose. And so if I hear a lot of dating coaches sort of advising listeners on YouTube sometimes. And some of these people were saying, well, I paid out $100 on a date, and I paid out $200 on a date, and I paid out $300 on a date. I think that's unfair. Well, in some ways it is, because you're putting more money into a date than you would into a marriage. And many of these people who are saying that they don't want to get married or adopting dating rotations. Now, a lot of times when men adopt a dating rotation, it's likely because he's having 4, 5, 6 women pay for the place he's in, give him some money, give him some food. They're all giving him sex, right? Some may be kinky, some may be standard, things like that. But he has a plan, but that's going to run out soon, because no woman wants to be in a dating rotation. I don't care who she is. She's not going to want to. Somebody is going to fall in love. They always do. But I wanted to make a note of that, because people are shelling out hundreds of dollars for a mere date, and you don't even know if you're going to see that person again. You don't even know if you're going to date that person beyond the first date. I think you should go Dutch. If he still wants to be a gentleman, let him be a gentleman in some other ways or whatever. But if he's insisting on paying, I don't know, you may have to let him pay, because he might be one of those types of men who has a provider mentality. But he can't also expect sex either. And that's sort of like the catch-22 there. So know your life vision. And then, of course, know your current finances. So you must be financially stable. When you're not financially stable, it makes it easier to engage in emotionally disruptive relationships. If people pursue financial stability as a life personal purpose, I think people would be less likely to engage in illicit behavior. I really do. If you looked at that $100 that you are going to use to go pay for some drugs, but instead looked at it as $100 a day, that ends up being $700 a week, and you thought to yourself, maybe before I take this hit, that this is $700 that I'm committing to a drug that could keep me hooked forever, I wonder just how much people would reconsider. Many people engage and enter the drug market simply because of curiosity, simply because they're bored, simply because why not? And so that is an emotionally disruptive relationship that you are having with drugs. And it has a root somewhere. Someone might have hurt your feelings. You might have come from a hard background, whatever it is. But it's an emotionally disruptive relationship. When you are not financially stable, you can do the same with a sibling. You always have to help them pay their rent. It's not like the person is 18, 19, 20 years old, just coming out of high school, still trying to find his way, maybe taking some college courses, maybe helping her with her little side business. It's not like that. It's this person who just has a sense of entitlement, and it doesn't matter whether or not you care about how they are treating you. It's just that I want you to give me what I want you to give me. You have it, so give it to me. And that's going to be an emotionally trying type of situation. And the way they reveal themselves is they pout. They are no different than the child that you see pouting on the floor. You got some people who pout and they won't call you anymore. You got some people who pout who will scream to the top of their lungs, just like a child. You got some people who will pout, who may utilize violence against you, try to get all up in your face. You got different types of people who will engage in emotionally trying, disruptive, um, types of incidences that you then say, just it'd be better just to give her the money, just give her the money. But you can't do that all the time, because you have to consider yourself as a 100% responsible adult. So establish a savings and investment plan, pay off debt, purchase life insurance, plan for life's little transitions and setbacks, grow in your career, create a side hustle, or turn that hobby into a second income. I want to look at that third bullet point right here under the separated section, plan for life's little transitions and setbacks. So we are in a pandemic. I mean, we're kind of coming out of it, not too much, but we are kind of coming out of it. But we are in a pandemic. We didn't expect for the whole economy to shut down. And so what Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman and all those other types of financial people have been talking about all this time, to have an emergency savings plan. We didn't expect for jobs to shut down and people have to stay home remotely and do work remotely. And then there are some people who couldn't do work remotely and lost hours. And so if the pandemic didn't teach us anything, uh, if the pandemic taught us anything, is that we really need to understand our finances. We may need to reassess our career options, the types of options. I wonder just how much, because of the pandemic, people might decide to go into the medical field, because those people still got to work. The hospitality industry had to shut down for a minute. The schools, I teach at the community college, I could work remotely because we have a online database. But it got very hard for me too, because if you don't have students working to pay for school in order to enroll in courses, I don't have any courses. So it's all connected. So growing in your career will definitely require that you understand technology, because a lot of the technology people, workers, they were able to work from home, right? And so that's something also you want to think about, because if you are still making $25,000 a year for 5 years, you're not really growing. However, there may be an exception to the rule. If you're taking on more responsibilities, especially leadership responsibility, you may not be increasing in pay as much, but you have something to place on your resume that reflects you being a leader. That's still growth. It's still growth. You can't always base everything off of money, but then, and as a 100% responsible adult, you have to base everything on money, because you got to take care of yourself. Then of course create a side hustle. I mean, a lot of people decided to create YouTube channels, and they have been doing very well in that. So know your current finances. So overcoming financial setback, what you should do: fight for your right to have financial peace in your heart, mind, soul, and own beauty. You have the right to have financial peace in your beauty. You do not have to go out and go get all these difficult surgical treatments just to fit some global standard. You will never fit that global standard. Even some of the people who are famous, and they have been very famous and have gone under the knife, they don't look like the same people that they were before, and they definitely don't have that same essence that they had before. And when you look at their older pictures, the previous pictures, you say they look better then. You have many folks who I say to myself, gosh, you look a whole lot better then. You should have just kept that look. Fight for personal financial validation. So that includes you yourself, your process. So for instance, if you set a goal to pay off your debt and you paid off one credit card, you are now financially validating your goal. And then you continue to do so until you reach the ultimate goal. Overcome financial setback through addressing current life issues and moving forward out of toxic situations. And that always includes family, friendship, and lovers. You have to set boundaries with family. Because if you don't set boundaries with family, it is going to spill over into friendship and lovers. You got to set boundary with lovers, because then your emotionally trying situations with lovers is going to prompt you to be vulnerable with family and friendships. And you got to set boundaries with friendships, because it is in the middle. And what you do in the middle matters just as much as what you do on the ends. All right. Hopefully you were able to gain some insight from this series topic. Like, subscribe, and visit. Like the video, hit the notification bell for future videos. You can visit my website, which is still in development, reginayfavors.com. You can always email me with a question, reginayfavors@yahoo.com. You will be able to purchase the book by the end of October 2021. I'm hoping that I will have it completed. Completely revised rather. It is already written and done. I just have to edit it. It is Overcoming Setback: 5 Keys for Entering and Exiting Correction. Thank you for visiting the channel. Coming soon is my new book that I am working on presently and hope to complete by the end of the year, December 2021, preferably February 2022, and that is Favors Financial Recovery, Psychological Approaches to Overcoming Financial Setback, with some workbook elements. So it is the it will be the book that will support the audio series, although I have developed the audio series prior to actually writing the book. So be on the lookout for this new book. When it comes out, when I finish, I will create an audio introduction to the book. Thank you again for visiting the channel.